Hi guys, welcome back to MotorHeads. We are with Chris today, and we're going to try to speculate. Not try. We're definitely going to enjoy speculating on the 992.2 turbo. We have a bunch of spy shots and speculation from forum that we've collected for you. I think everybody knows that they're going to roll out the 992.2 design that we can see on the 911 already to the turbo model. But from the 992.2, of course, we have seen what they've done with the hybrid model in the GTS. That's actually faster than the current Porsche turbo. So of course, Porsche is going to have to up the ante there and make it faster. How exactly? There are quite some interesting speculation that are floating around, including potentially doing a little bit what they did with the Porsche GT3, offering almost everything you wanted on the ST. So there's a special edition here that Porsche has done. I think they could take some inspiration from, especially when we look at the spy shot. So I think there's a new trim that could be coming for the turbo. But let's get started and look a little bit at the spy shot here, and let's see what we can pick from those images. So Chris, if you want to comment what you found out on those things.
Yeah, so based on a bunch of spy shots that we've been seeing on the 992.2 turbo range. I mean, we've seen a couple of body styles already. We've seen the coupe, we've also seen a cabriolet, and we've seen a new rumored touring model because it has a few elements that are missing from from your standard turbo fare. So and we've looked at a bunch of other Porsche models from the past too, and even more recently, current GTS models to kind of figure out why this could be the rumored touring model. So it's essentially an expansion of the turbo range. I mean, we're starting to get more granular with each of the 911 sub brands. Um, so this appears to be from close to over a year ago, winter weather testing. Obviously, this one has a wide body with the fixed rear wing, so it's pretty easy to say that it's going to be probably the top spec turbo model.
Yeah,
But there's an updated body style which would most likely be joining the turbo lineup as well.
yeah.
So I'll begin by discussing some of the visual cues, potential performance upgrades, or powertrain changes that are coming to the turbo range of cars.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we can see definitely some inspiration of the GTS front end with the bumper little winglet there that they have in the front that definitely circulating for the turbo. At least I mean we think so that they definitely have the air intake here in the back. So that's barely disguised turbo carrier. So we know exactly that they're gonna deploy this. I think here we have a little image on the GTS about how it looks. Certainly gonna be a pretty simple deployment of the 992.2 in term of design. They're gonna have those little inlet thing, and they most likely will remove those turn signal that we can see on the turbo here on the 992.1 gen, and they're gonna integrate this in the headlight mainly. We can see them. I think. Oh, I'm missing it here. They're definitely masking the headlight on the spy shot here, so I don't think they're going to be too much surprise on this.
Yeah, you can see moving the indicators to the headlight obviously opens up more room for the size of the active vanes on the front intake that you can see there in the front bumper. But this is supposedly the rumored turbo model. I mean, you can see that this is the wide body, between the narrow and wide body. So this is the wide body. You can see that they've patched up the side air intake or the rear fender. So that, but which is kind of reminiscent of turbo models. However, if you look in the rear, we do not have a fixed rear wing. You essentially have the rear deck lid that you generally see on Carreras, and because this is what it looks a typical turbo looks like with the fixed rear wing in the rear. And
Yeah.
here you can see a completely different layout and setup, but on a turbo body. So this is essentially what is supposedly the new turbo touring
Yeah.
911.
I think it's also interesting to see how they're really bulging here, the bumper on the outside.
Yeah,
We don't know if those outlet here are actually going to be there in the final model, but there's definitely a lot of bulging stuff that is happening there. They're even masking the side of the tail light here a little bit. But I think
yeah,
the most interesting are those yellow stickers that seems to say that this will be a hybrid model in some kind of ways. Because I think you told me that those stickers like are meant to signal like emergency worker or firefighters if there's a problem with the car, that there's a high voltage in the car. So I think this definitely gives away quite a lot in
yeah,
terms of, okay, the powertrain will have a hybrid, and because the wing is not there, I guess the speculation now is going that there may be a special trim that will be hybrid without the wing. And even if we want to push even further, like they are closing the air intake here.
yeah,
So God knows what they're gonna do here. Maybe they could have some. I don't know. We can totally speculate. They could maybe have an electric flap that's closed, just like they do here for the front. And maybe that car will be able to run in a hybrid, electric only, maybe at much higher speed than what we have seen other cars. I mean, I think it would be pretty interesting if they do a top of the line model that's hybrid, but can actually drive a little faster with just the battery. I mean, on the GTS, it seems that it's pretty much just a increased performance hybrid. You cannot just run on the electric
yeah,
car because the battery is too small. But for the turbo, who knows what they are cooking? I think they're gonna follow the same recipe, but very strange that they have that thing that close here on the side, because it's a hybrid, but it's a wide body. We think it's a turbo. So here they I'm a little bit lost for what they're gonna do. I guess they are testing it
yeah.
just with those air intake close to see what happened. It'd be interesting. I'm really intrigued by by those bands. So we'll see what happened there. I think not having the big wing in the back is gonna be also quite interesting. So I think we have a couple of more spy shots where we see that they are testing different exhaust shapes. Usually they always find a way to charge you more money
Yeah.
to buy some different type of exhaust shapes and size. So for them, I think it's a pretty good business to continue that, and they're definitely doing it here. We can see here like what we think would be a turbo convertible. I mean, they've done it for so many years. I'm pretty sure they're gonna continue doing that forever. But here again, we can also see a yellow
Yeah.
sticker. So again, it really looks like pretty much all the model will be hybrid again to justify the top of the line model and going faster than what the 992.2 GTS is doing, because
Yeah.
it's already like like a fraction 2 seconds faster the numbering. So they're gonna have to do this. So yeah, I mean, I think yeah, we don't know much about the tech of the hybrid, what's going to be in it. But if you maybe want to run us a little bit through what actually is going on in the 992.2 hybrid, and what you think is going to be the update they can potentially make.
So yeah, I mean the current the 992.2 GTS introduced the new T hybrid system, and it's got two electric motors, one in the PDK, 8-speed PDK in the transmission, and another e-turbo, so which essentially eliminates turbo lag completely. So the e motor in the PDK draws power from the 1.9 kilowatt hour battery pack, and the whole engine, the combustion engine itself is a far more simpler setup without, the twin turbos. You don't need the twin turbos because there's no turbo lag now with the e-turbo. And it's a smaller 3.6 liter all new power plant. So the question really remains, I mean, like, how is Porsche going to integrate or differentiate the turbo line from, from lower in the model range, like the GTS? Are they going to give that because the 1.9 kilowatt hour provides around, you get around 55 horsepower from that setup. So is the battery pack going to be bigger, or are they going to revise the combustion power plant? So which setup? I don't really know how they're going to go about it. For
Yeah,
reference, the current 911 Turbo S uh, uh, that produces around 640 horsepower. Then you've got the turbo at around 572. And the current 992.2 GTS, the updated one, so that's got 532 combined. And so
yeah,
that's 478 plus 55 on horsepower, which is around comes to 532. So
yeah,
which approach is Porsche going to take with these updated
yeah,
in order to produce more power? Because it all comes down to the torque. The
yeah.
reason that the new 992.2 GTS is quicker than the outgoing Turbo S around the Nürburgring is because of the, even with substantially lesser power, is because of the additional torque, because there's basically no lag when, the driver
Yeah, they're
steps
really
on
able
it.
to get out of
Yeah,
those corner like really fast and not having to wait for the turbo. I mean, I think the turbo is always a less nimble car, a little heavier car, so I think it would
yeah,
totally be okay for them to add more battery in the front. I mean, the Porsche 911 has a ton of space in the front, so
yeah.
if they wanted, they could easily triple or quadruple the amount of weight in the front, and I think it would be okay. I mean, those cars are always a bit rear heavy, anyways. So I think adding it may actually be be a more balanced car. I mean, we see on the new M5 how heavy those new German hybrids car are. So I think on the turbo they really can afford to make it heavier. On the 911 they always like say, oh, we need to be absolutely under that amount of weight because that's the 911 that people want. But for the turbo, people
Hmm.
want something a little different. I think they're totally ready to compromise. So I would not be surprised to see obviously bigger displacement. We know Porsche, they start at 3.6. They'll do 3.8 maybe next year, and we'll have a 4 liter, in 2 or 3 years for sure for the end of the line. I mean, they're always really good at ramping things up to really have something new on their engine during the whole lineup. So my take is a bigger engine, bigger battery. I think it would totally be acceptable and it would work. But I think it's time to get to the next rumor, which is um, how potentially we could have that wingless Turbo S with a slight inspiration of the Porsche Sport Classic, and then have a Turbo Touring, which would be only a rear-wheel drive, which I think is the only thing I can think of is that, for example, the Audi R8 latest generation were offering, instead of their always four-wheel drive typical of Audi, they had a
Yeah.
rear-wheel drive version. Everybody was very excited. Oh, it's going to be like more exciting and stuff. So tell us a little bit why people are thinking that there's something with the sports classic and the whole concept of it pushing to the turbo.
Yeah. So, I mean, we saw the spy shots, and we definitely know that the wingless 911 Turbo S is going to be a hybrid powertrain, but it doesn't really support. Uh, um, how do you differentiate it from the top of the line all-wheel drive model? So it's going to add less complexity and weight if you go with a rear-wheel drive setup. That could be one way. However, it's not going to feature a manual transmission because the hybridized setup cannot accommodate for that. So we know it's going to be a PDK only, but it's going to be PDK with rear wheel drive. I mean, even the GTS, for example, you have it with the rear wheel drive, and you have the GTS Carrera 4 with all-wheel drive. So that we know that that's definitely possible, but a manual won't be possible. So that would be the clear defining factor between the top spec all-wheel drive PDK only Turbo S and the touring package. And I suspect there could be some lightweight additions, just like we saw with the GT3 uh, more recently, where they had like a special lift power package, for example. Probably, I mean, to further distinguish it from the top of the line Turbo S.
Yeah, I think if they have a rear-wheel drive, it would be quite interesting. I guess it
Yeah,
all could also be that rear-wheel drive only would be a way for them to save some weight and be able to
yeah,
add more battery to it. Even though it's tricky because the Porsche Turbo has been all-wheel drive for a very long time.
yeah,
So offering a rear-wheel drive version, I think there would be a wow factor to it, bringing back to the roots of like the 930 back in the 80s, where people thought that those cars were really dangerous to drive. But now with the
yeah.
electronics, I think it would totally be fine to be rear-wheel drive, and the electronics can keep it under control. And I think it would be a little bit a crazy Porsche, and I think it could be interesting to bring some spice on that turbo model, which everybody thinks it's a little bit the heavier, more boring car, even though it's actually a really really good car for the road. You know, if you stay actually in the city, even though the car sounds stupidly fast, it has all the low end torque. So in the end, it's a really fun car to drive. It's a little bit like the muscle car. Instead of driving a big V8, you drive the turbo, and even if you drive slowly, it's actually really fun to enjoy the torque. So I think rear wheel drive would make sense, but there's potential for a surprise there to see what happened. A lot of different combinations that are floating on the internet, and when we think about it, oh man, that car could actually be really exciting. I hope they do it instead of just doing okay, we're just facelifting the turbo, and we pretty much take a GTS and just push it a little faster, which they may literally do that. They take, okay, we have the 992.2 hybrid, we give it
Yeah.
like 20% more battery, 20% more power, it'll be just faster. And, you know, they're totally capable of being so annoying and doing that, just like the very mild update they did on the Porsche GT3, which was
Yeah.
very underwhelming. People were thinking, oh, they're going to do this and that. And then in the end, they have done so little. So I guess the cars are actually selling so well lately for the past few years. They may be actually thinking, you know, we don't have to really push it so much. Let's just keep whatever cool stuff we have in stock and just put an upgrade up there, just a facelift. We're going to sell a ton of them, and let's keep the really cool stuff for later. So it would be very interesting to see when they release it, if they really need to boost their sales, or if actually, you know, sell a, you know, backlog so much, which I think is the case right now. They don't really have to push it too much, but I think they may make the mistake that other manufacturers make, which is, oh, we're gonna make a ton of money, barely changing our cars, and then in a year, you know, we're gonna hear from, oh, we're losing money because nobody wants our car anymore, because they just have flooded the market with cars that are not exciting enough. So
Yeah.
I really hope they do some kind of turbo touring package with some a little bit of crazy rear wheel drive and stuff like that. So when you
Yeah.
brought that up that they could potentially do this, I thought, yeah, that's, you know, that would be super
So with the
exciting. We can have a few slides on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying, I mean, Porsche has only done the sport, used a turbocharged power plant in the more recent past with the sport classic models. But the one distinction being that they had a manual transmission because it had just the 3.8 power plant. So there's no hybrid or anything. But here with the touring package, since it's going to be hybridized, so it's going to be rear wheel drive, but it'll feature a hybrid powertrain and a PDK.
Yeah, it's very unlikely that they could do a manual hybrid. I mean, I'm sure they could, but the thing is that the
Yeah,
take on rate, people who buy the turbo usually don't want to buy a manual anyways. I mean, if you really wanted to have a manual turbo, they have a GT2 RS that's always kind of in the car that they could do. So I think the PDK make more sense. So yeah, again, they can do anything. It's really about what people are ready to buy. But I mean, when we see the GTS, I mean, it would be very interesting. I'm sure they've been thinking about, okay, can we put that hybrid system and make it work with a manual gearbox? And I'm sure it can, but there will be a lot of complication and that I may not be worth it. So yeah, I think we're gonna go for PDK only as soon as we put the hybrid system
no,
everywhere in the car.
no.
It's the
But
only
if
thing
you
that makes
notice
sense.
in the previous slide, there is an enthusiast special of sorts. I mean, so if you go for the base standard turbo, so this is the Roma, uh, you're going to get rear wheel drive and manual with now, and it's most likely going to be probably some form a revised version of the 3.8 because it's not going to be the hybrid power plant because it can't support the manual as I just stated
It would be
a
yeah, it
while
would be
back.
interesting
Yeah,
to see if they actually say, okay, we're gonna put the turbo hybrid, and then it would be smart to test the water. Say, okay, if you don't want the hybrid, we still have a version, and it's still a fun thing. So yeah, if they would do also a rear wheel drive manual turbo, that would also
yeah.
spice things up quite a bit. I mean, that's a crazy amount of trim and options, but Porsche has been known to be able to deal with that pretty well. So I think people would, especially like again, all the influencers, the YouTubers and stuff, would have a lot of fun testing those cars back to back, and they would have a lot of exposure to the car. So yeah, that's I'd forgotten that you mentioned that. I think
Yeah.
it would be really interesting and also be wise so that people don't have to just complain,
This,
hey, we don't have the turbo anymore. And so
yeah.
I think
I
that'd
mean,
be pretty cool.
Manual 911s are getting so rare, extremely rare right now. Right now, I think it's the only one that they have on sale, I think, is the ST, and it's so ridiculously expensive. The last time that we had, if I'm correct, I think it back in the late 2000s, I think the 997 was the last time that we saw a turbo manual combination of sorts. Just with the
Yeah.
turbo, I'm not talking about the GT2 line of cars. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's, as a send off, as one of the last manual turbo 911s, this could be, has the
That would be
potential to be
cool.
a collector's car as well. Rear wheel drive
Yeah.
manual, I think, a proper enthusiast car.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It would be very interesting. They could maybe do a 930 batch special limited edition if they do that. I mean, those would sell like
Yeah.
in a heartbeat, that's for sure. So yeah,
Yeah.
very very interesting. So yeah, I mean, we're unpacking a lot of different potential for that turbo upgrade. I mean, that really you can just imagine like for the next 5 years. I mean, there are all so many things that they could do. I don't think they're gonna release all at once, but yeah, there's a lot of potential to still make the car pretty cool. I mean, we've been talking about all the outside and the engine. I mean, on the inside, most likely we'll just be applying the 992 interior by
Yeah.
removing. We saw in the GT3 they're gonna remove the analog tech. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
sure. Most likely there will be a push button there. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just more detail in the end. It's not like you're not gonna buy the car just for that. I mean, uh, let's touch up a little bit on the price. I mean, usually there is a price premium for the turbo, but that may be the scary part is that when we see the price increase for the new GT3, which is $60,000,
Yeah.
I think new Porsche Turbo may see an increase of price in a similar fashion, maybe even more, but I would say at least $50,000. So if you want a turbo, which they're already horribly expensive, the next generation, which is going to be pretty similar, but for the non-hybrid, but adding the hybrid system and everything, we could get to a crazy price tag for that car, like maybe
Yeah.
$250,000, potentially $300,000 when the car is loaded. I mean, those cars have always been really, really expensive, anyways, and they're already in the high, $150,000 plus when they are option, or sure, maybe even 200,000. So the new model, I think, is going to be again breaking a new ceiling in term of pricing. So that's going to be, I think, the bad news, and the worst part of this is that not only it's going to be expensive, but now those cars are horribly complicated.
Yeah.
So with the hybrid system, the whole repair and the long term, because the attraction of the turbo was that you could buy used one, you could keep them, they were really reliable. But if they really do all that hybrid system like the GTS, it's going to be really, really complicated. I mean, just for perspective, I know, like, for example, the latest BMW hybrid, when you bring them to the shop, they actually have to call BMW USA to open a work order. Then with the phone connection, they disable the battery at a remote to disconnect it before a technician can work on it, because they're worried that the mechanics could be electrocuted, making a mistake. Because now, even when the car is off, there's all that power in it, and so
Yeah.
every time you drop your car, it stays for weeks at the shop. So Porsche getting there, sure, the car are faster, but it's getting really, really complicated with all that hybrid system. I guess that's just the way they're going to be able to maintain the car on the road. But I guess for me, that's really the main turn off. Really hope they maintain, as you said, some kind of non-hybrid turbo to maintain
Yeah.
that specific of those cars, being reliable and being good car to buy used. Because I think Porsche, it's a little bit like Toyota. I think they are known because they are reliable, and because when they're on the used market, people can still buy them and enjoy them. So you have a crowd of people who can afford the car brand new, that can
Yeah.
buy them used, and still enjoy them and have fun with them. While with like Ferrari, for example, if you buy a used Ferrari, even if the price of the car is even less than a Porsche, people don't even buy them because they're just so expensive to maintain.
Yeah.
It's really out of reach. So I hope they don't go too much with the hybrid. I hope they keep those at a side trim, and they maintain the non-hybrid car. Hopefully they sell enough SUVs to offset
Yeah.
their carbon footprint as a brand overall. But
I mean,
yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
I mean, if you look at the current the 992 generation, which debuted back in May, I mean, there was a base Carrera which does not feature any form of electrification. So just in case people still want to opt for a simpler non-hybrid setup, just back to basics internal combustion, I think Porsche will continue to offer that at every stage. I mean, in the GT3, we don't have any form of hybridization at all. Uh,
Yeah,
Again, I mean,
yeah,
as you see
yeah,
with with any kind of, even with tech updates, the first rollout of any software generally could be a bit glitchy, but with the second rollout, I mean, things are ironed out. A lot of those teething problems are generally fixed. So I suppose we'll have to wait and see how reliable these hybrid systems are, because unlike the e-hybrid, which has been around for more than a decade at this point. I think it started around 2010. T-hybrid is a completely new area for Porsche, and especially for the 911, it's the first hybridized production 911, so to speak.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll
I
have to
think the
see.
concept,
Yeah,
yeah, it's great that they are venturing in new territory. I mean, we want to see them on the top of the technology and being able to offer this.
yeah,
I mean, I think as ownership goes, I mean, I really don't think. Unfortunately, I'm all for the hybrid stuff, but from what I've read around, unfortunately, the maintenance of the system is really problematic because again, the battery being always under power when you charge them, they need to be cool. So you have your car in the garage, and suddenly it
yeah,
starts automatically at night because or during the day because it's too hot and need to cool the battery. You pretty much have like a power plant like that's constantly running in your car. It's never really off because you
yeah,
have to maintain the battery system. So I think it's cool and all, but yeah, I personally, in the end, I'm kind of against it. I think if you lease the car and you're just going to be the owner for a few years, people are going to really
mm,
enjoy it. But I think as when the car goes on the used market, I think the depreciation it's going to be huge. And we actually have not seen any of those hybrid sports car really going on the used market. But if you look
yeah,
at the even the electric car, the Tesla, and all those electric cars that are going on the used market, nobody wants them because literally, if you buy a used car, you have a bunch of mechanics around you, but nobody can work on those cars. They literally don't know what to do. They don't have the machines, and
yeah,
if you bring them to the dealer, the price they charge you to fix them is just so ridiculous that there's no point. You might just buy a brand new one. So there's really a big thing with those hybrid cars. They are interesting, but like for the Toyota Prius, sure, the car is old. At some point, you almost toss it, you throw it away.
yeah.
But for those expensive one, I think it's a big problem. So
I,
unfortunately, yeah, I would stay away from it. But I'm interested to
yeah.
see the tech.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for innovation, but with any form of, when you introduce any form of electrification, I personally feel there are two things that kind of impact a car's value, maybe even at the end of a lease term. One is the industry is progressing at such a rapid rate that by that time, in 3 years or 4 years down the road, once the lease ends, the battery technology has moved on completely. And which is something that you saw with the Taycan, right? I mean, the used Taycan market crashed so significantly because the Gen 2 batteries of the Taycan are so much more better that the Gen 1 batteries
Yeah.
they were
Yeah,
very bad.
the range is
Yeah,
just so bad that nobody wants to deal with. I think the range is like 200 miles, maybe even less when you
yeah,
drive around. So it's almost like a golf cart to drive around your
yeah.
community, but you can go anywhere with that car. And yeah, the used price is just brutal.
I mean, there you have like a double whammy effect where there's depreciation plus, degradation of the battery, so the ability to hold charge. So, I mean, with the 911, the battery doesn't necessarily play so much of a role, but as you mentioned, the complexity of trying to replace that battery probably with an updated version down the road can actually add to significant costs in the future.
Yeah. And it's going to take quite some time for Porsche mechanics to know how to deal with those things. So
Yeah,
again, as if when everything is right and everything works fine, it's okay. But it's just so many more components and stuff. And we can see they don't put them on the GT3, like they don't want
yeah,
that kind of complication stuff. So I'm sure they'll be better to drive. Again, so that instant torque, you're gonna be at the start stop function is gonna be fantastic. Maybe you're gonna be able to roll up the red lights, on the hybrid motor a little bit to launch you out. So there's no doubt that it's going to be a better experience for sure. So if you're leasing the
Yeah.
car, great. If you want to buy it and keep it, yeah, maybe worth sticking to the old tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we went through all those different stuff. I think let us know what you think about the 992 turbo speculation. I mean, there are some people who are talking on the internet about some six strokes engine and some crazy stuff that are going over there. So if you want to speculate and bring some crazy stuff here, please feel free to comment about it. Personally, I'm excited for 930 trim rear wheel drive manual turbo, and I think that's what everybody's gonna want to see online. So let's hope Porsche brings at least one sexy thing, just doesn't bring us a big like nothing burger of here we go, just facelifted turbo version. Let's hope they have a little more. But again, if the hybrid comes in a few years, all better to me. But I think it's coming now, guys. When I see those yellow stickers all over the cars, I
Yeah.
think that's it.
All right.
Okay. Thank you for watching. Thanks, Chris. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Absolutely.